Any type of Cybertruck news has definitely gone quiet lately, especially after the earnings call where Elon said there were no new models coming in 2022, despite more and more Tesla megachargers going up, so hopefully Tesla Semi is in limited production for the remainder of 2022. But there is a rumor brewing around. The validity of this rumor is still in question, but it comes from a source, allegedly from Giga, Texas, that is in contact with Omar, who runs the Whole Mars catalog on Twitter, and from this DM screenshot of this anonymous tipster, he's claiming that Cybertruck is going to enter crash testing later this year with beta vehicles, and that first deliveries should be in the first quarter of 2023. He also went on to mention that there is a huge push for Tesla to grow substantially in software this year. Couple that with Elon Musk saying they're entertaining the idea of just optimizing the Tesla computers so that you could essentially run any Steam game on your car versus designing games individually to be ported over to the Tesla. So software seems to be a huge emphasis this year, which makes a ton of sense considering there's a chip shortage. They don't even expect to be limited by the number of batteries they can build. So if there's not too much new stuff you can do in regards to hardware, and basically all of Giga Texas and Fremont, Berlin, and Shanghai, they're just focusing on ramping production, that means a huge portion of the company can just focus on making, hopefully, the infotainment system better. And in that same DM, he went on to mention that there's a huge push to get level 4 autonomy done by the end of this year. Now, if you've seen my videos in the past, you know I'm still very skeptical of Tesla getting anywhere close to level 4 this year, in case you weren't aware. Level 4 means that the vehicle can drive without a driver in the driver's seat, but there are still geofences. So there's definitely a lot of autonomous vehicle startups that abuse that definition, like Google Waymo, where they're driving literally within a few dozen square miles, and technically there's no driver, but they also have someone ready to take over virtually, or they have shadow drivers going behind the vehicle, or they'll make it so their cars only take right turns because that's safer than ever turning left. So yeah, there's some very, very weak definitions of level 4, but in order for that to happen, we would have to see software getting so good in FSD beta that the vehicle could go from in one parking space and drive on a freeway, drive across town and park within certain jurisdictions with no one in the driver's seat. And so far, Tesla hasn't even been comfortable with someone not paying attention to the road or not keeping their hands on the wheel. So considering that's where we are near the end of February, I personally don't think level 4 will be achieved, but it's probably worth mentioning all of the details listed in this Giga Texas employee memo. I don't think it's necessarily lies. You know, it's possible someone is making all this stuff up for the sake of attention. That's always a chance, but it does actually sound like what Tesla's internal deadlines would be. I don't think Elon was lying when he said that they expected the Tesla Semi to be out by 2019, or the Roadster by 2020, or the Cybertruck by 2021. They were all just very optimistic and thought those things would be ready in time, and of course it ended up being more challenging and more difficult than they thought. But whether or not it's a legitimate source telling us that Cybertruck deliveries could potentially be 1 year away from right now, that might be the internal deadline. That might be what they're discussing, because obviously Giga Texas has already produced over 100 4680 Model Ys that we've seen parked outside the factory. At this rate, it's looking fairly likely that 4680 battery production will start at Giga Texas within the next couple months. Then it's just a matter of ramping up those batteries, securing enough chips. I'm sure deliveries of Giga Texas Model Ys could be literally any day now. At the very latest, probably right after the Giga Texas event, which is supposed to be on April 7th. So we're gonna have like many quarters and many months of just Model Ys ramping up production at this factory. The idea that within Q3 or Q4, they're gonna start building out some Cybertruck beta units that are very, very close to the production version and running crash tests on them so that they do have final verification and final permits to start deliveries for them by Q1 of next year. That aligns with Elon's timeline of saying that they weren't going to introduce any new models in this year, but definitely feels too good to be true to say, well, that means Q1 of 2023, that's when first Cybertrucks will deliver. But I do have to admit, in more recent history, Tesla has typically started delivering new models near the beginning of the year, because everything in terms of vehicle ramping and deliveries gets really, really busy in Q4. Statistically and just traditionally, that's when there's a huge demand for vehicles. So after your crazy pent-up quarter of demand, things typically die down a little bit in the first quarter, and that's when Tesla originally introduced the Model Y. They worked on crash testing it and prototype builds, and lots of employees were even driving around the Model Y leading up to the start of 2020. We were spotting them around the Fremont area at Q4 of 2019, but then first Model Y deliveries came around in March of 2020. So same thing with kind of the plaid Model S, although they originally thought they were going to start refreshed Model S and X deliveries early in 2021. The chip shortage combined with the complexities of the new interior ended up delaying a lot of those builds, and unfortunately the new Model S didn't start delivering until summer of last year, but they did unveil it. They did introduce the refreshed Model S and X at the beginning of 2021, even though it was rumored and talked about, and they even shut down the Model S and X assembly lines in Q4, which Elon said in hindsight was a bad idea, but still it gives you the concept that, okay, if we are delaying Cybertruck for 2022, it's probably so that they can ramp up as much as they can with the Model Y at their 2 new factories. Then once the new year starts, maybe that's when Tesla is anticipating the chip shortage to be more resolved and for the crash tests and production validations to be done with the Cybertruck. And hopefully, I think by Q1 of 2023, the 4680 battery production will be quite a bit ramped at Giga, Texas. They're going to be building hopefully tens of thousands of Model Ys every single month, all with the structural battery pack. And according to Troy Teslike on Twitter, he's estimating that the new 4680 batteries going into the Model Y are going to result in pretty much the same range. So they're just going to be using a lot less cells so that they can deliver more vehicles overall, which is fairly logical, matching a lot of the range and specifications of the Fremont-made Model Y. If that ends up being the case, they should have plenty of 4680 batteries stockpiled for Cybertruck production to begin at the start of 2023. But again, we could have another plaid Model S situation where they update the website, even Elon makes a few tweets and says, hey, Cybertruck deliveries are starting within the next couple months, and then there's some mass production issue with Tesla armored glass, the exoskeletons ends up being more difficult than they thought, or we get hit by another major chip shortage that Tesla didn't anticipate. But all I'm trying to say is, based on Tesla's history, it's usually not the third and fourth quarter of the year where brand new product categories start delivering. It's happened, but at least in recent history, they typically reserve that for the big holiday rush, which is why if the Cybertruck is coming out in 2023, I would anticipate it to be at least in the first or second quarter, and that's why I think there's probably some validity to this report. And of course, I'm just so excited to hear any kind of updates possible, so whether this source is right or not, it's at least kind of nice to know there's a rumor Cybertruck deliveries could be in January, so less than a year to go. Does that get you guys excited? Is this kind of like the boy who cried wolf situation, or do you think this source is legit? Feel free to let me know what you're thinking down below. Thank you to everyone on Patreon supporting the channel, helping us surpass the halfway mark with saving up for the Tesla fund so that we can buy a vehicle later this year. Everyone just watching the channel is helping a ton too, so thank you, take care, have a great day.